Dadi was an extraordinary person. She looked like an angel, and it's hard to describe her presence because she just glowed with love, with purity, acceptance, and belonging. And I have so many memories of Dadiji. I had the fortune to travel around India with her, travel around America, travel around Australia, and many places. But I thought I would share a little bit about her leadership abilities. Because when Brahma Baba, the founder of this organization, passed away, she took responsibility. And really it's not very common for women to really take up the role as the head of a spiritual organization. But as you know, that's the uniqueness of the Brahma Kumaris, and Dadi Prakashmani was really the model for all the sisters around the world. And I actually, in the early 1990s, I traveled around the world with a film crew from here in Australia. And we did a film called Women of Spirit. It was really about the role of women in leadership. And the two women that we were looking at were the two heads of the Brahma Kumaris, Dadi Prakashmani and Dadi Janki. And during that tour, we interviewed so many people, but I did interview Dr. James Jonah, who was, I think, the Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations for Political Affairs. He was a wonderful man from Sierra Leone in Africa. And he was sharing, I went up to his office at the top of the United Nations building. We set up the cameras. And I asked him many questions, but one question I asked him was, of all the leaders you've met, who is the most impressive? And he had met Ronald Reagan, the President of America, Mikhail Gorbachev, the President of Russia, and all the leaders at that time. And his answer was Dadi Prakashmani. And I said, why? And he said, because her life is her leadership. She leads by example. Her whole personality is really so accepting and respectful of everybody. And that was really, really touching. And I think in so many ways I learned so much from Dadiji. She was so humble. And I remember that just before she became the head of the organization, someone told me she was traveling to Mount Abu from Bombay with a group from Bombay. And when they arrived at the train to go on an overnight train, there were 7 of them and only 6 berths. And there was one young woman there. She was only 15 years old. So because she was the youngest, she had to sit up. So she sat between the chairs. And everyone went to sleep, including Dadi Prakashmani. At midnight, Dadi Prakashmani woke up and saw this young girl a bit uncomfortable sitting on some grain in between the seats. And so she got out of her bed. She put this young sister in her bed and she sat up all night. And really, that absolutely epitomizes the character of Dadi Prakashmani. Absolutely humble. Even though she was so great, she treated everyone as an equal and showed this extraordinary respect for everyone she came in touch with. And once she was in Australia and she was meeting a group of us. And we said to her, Daddy, how do you manage such a huge organization with hundreds of thousands of people, thousands of centers and people from all different backgrounds and all over the world? And I remember very well, she said, I trust everyone. First, I listen, then I teach. Really, she would listen to the heart of everyone before she gave advice or suggestions. She never just jumped in and told them. And then she said, I never control anyone. I give freedom to everyone. And really that was my experience, that she would actually give freedom to people. And when you give that freedom, you don't try to control, they automatically come close and they listen to you. And really, that was my experience of Dadiji. She was so wise, and the way she dealt with people was just so benevolent, so wise, and she always held the value of everyone in her attitude. So when you came in front of her, you felt uplifted. When she walked into a room, it was like light walked into a room. Everyone felt uplifted by her presence because of her benevolent attitude. And once I remember, again in Australia, she was touring here. She toured in Australia quite a few times. We were in our main centre in Melbourne, and there was a man from San Francisco who was with us, Harold Stretfeld, who was a very famous psychologist. And he was explaining to Dadiji how new religious movements, as they're known, often have a very charismatic leader. A small group start to follow that leader. In time, a lot of people start to come. And when many people, when the organization really grows, and a lot of money comes into the organization, then the organization shakes. And he asked her, why was it that when Brahma Baba left, the organization didn't shake? And why is it that as you just keep growing? Because he actually said he'd done a study on 70 of these new religious movements, and most only have a lifespan of about 15 to 20 years. The Brahma Kumaris is now 84 years. And Dadiji replied how she manages, and she said that whenever she has a big decision, she goes and consults all the main people to get their views. And if there's a few who don't really agree with what she's thinking, she doesn't jump in and say 70% agree with me, I'll go ahead. She said, I wait. And in time, they start to come on board, and then we can all move forward together. And really, my experience was that Dadi Prakashmani really created a sense of unity and carried everyone forward because of her extraordinary love for God, because of her extraordinary respect for everyone, and the way she just built unity, brought everyone together at every step. And really, in August, we do remember her. In the Brahma Kumaris, we don't worship her or venerate her, but we learn from her life because she was a wonderful example of a spiritual person so that we can also progress ourselves. Thank you.
Dadi, Prakashmani.